I received a red letter from my grandfather, a retired general. It contained a set of coordinates in one word: now. My grandfather Pierce never sent letters. The red envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning. No return address. Just a military postmark and my name in handwriting I instantly recognized. I hadn't heard from my grandfather Pierce in months, which wasn't unusual. He'd maybe sent 3 birthday cards my entire life. I tore it open at my kitchen counter. Inside was a single sheet of military letterhead with coordinates written in Pierce's precise handwriting: 47.2033 degrees north, 121.8842 degrees west. Below the numbers, in block letters, now. That was it. No explanation, no greeting, nothing else to indicate why my retired general grandfather wanted me at some random location. I tried calling his number in Spokane immediately. The line was disconnected. That was strange. Pierce was a creature of habit, had kept the same phone number for decades. I called my mother next. "Renee, have you heard from Grandpa recently?" "Not for about 3 months, she said, concern edging into her voice. "Why? What's going on?" I explained about the envelope. She went quiet for several seconds. "That's not like him," she finally said. "Even when he was active military, he always checked in monthly. Something's wrong." I agreed. After we hung up, I searched the coordinates online. They pointed to a remote area in the Cascade Mountains, about 2 hours east of Seattle. The location was deep in protected federal land, miles from any marked trails. I called my friend Miles, who worked in IT and had access to satellite imagery. He came over that evening with his laptop. "There's nothing there, man," he said, zooming in on high-resolution images of dense forest. "Just trees, no structures, no clearings, nothing unusual." I stared at the red envelope, now spread open on my coffee table. Why would he send me to the middle of nowhere? Why? Miles shrugged. "Military stuff? Secret government business? Your grandfather was a general, right?" "Yeah, but he's been retired for years." I picked up the paper again, studying the handwriting. "This is definitely from him, though." I debated calling authorities. Pierce wasn't exactly the type to need rescuing, even at his age. He'd survived 3 wars and countless classified operations. The next morning, I called my ex-girlfriend Emira. She worked for a mapping company and owed me a favor. "Those coordinates are in rough terrain," she said after checking her databases. "The elevation changes are extreme, lots of ravines. Be careful if you're going there." "Thanks," I said. "I might need to." "Why would anyone want to meet in such a remote location?" she asked. I had no good answer. After hanging up, I made my decision. I packed a backpack with emergency supplies, first aid kit, water purifier, protein bars, extra clothes, flashlight. I added a portable charger for my phone, and a paper map as backup. By late afternoon, I was on the road heading east. The drive took longer than expected. I reached the National Forest entrance as the sun was setting. A forest ranger stepped out of a small station as I pulled up. "Park closes at dusk," she said, approaching my window. Her nameplate read, Faith. I showed her the coordinates. "I need to reach this location. It's important." She frowned at the paper. "That's in a restricted area. There's been some erosion damage, unsafe for hikers." "My grandfather asked me to meet him there," I said. "It's urgent." Faith studied my face for a long moment. "The logging road will get you partway. After that, you're on foot for about 3 miles. She hesitated before continuing. "Watch for the yellow markers. Stay on that path. Some areas are restricted." Her tone made me uneasy. "Restricted how?" "Just government stuff. Research stations. Watershed protection." She handed back the paper. "Be careful out there. Cell service is non-existent." I thanked her and drove through. The logging road was rough, barely maintained. My car bounced over ruts and rocks until I reached a weathered trail marker. This was as far as I could drive. I checked my watch. Still a couple hours of daylight left, enough time to hike in before dark if I hurried. I shouldered my backpack and started walking. The forest grew denser with each step. The trail was barely visible, just occasional breaks in the underbrush. I kept checking my phone's GPS. The signal was weak, but still functioning. According to the map, I was heading directly toward the coordinates Pierce had sent. What would I find there? Why had he summoned me to this remote wilderness? The questions kept circling in my mind as I hiked deeper into the forest. The sun was sinking lower. I picked up my pace. Whatever was waiting at those coordinates, I was determined to find out. I drove the logging road until my car couldn't go any farther. The sun was sinking fast behind the mountains. I grabbed my backpack and started hiking, using my phone's GPS to follow the coordinates Pierce had sent. The forest grew thicker with each step. Branches snagged at my clothes as I pushed forward. Yellow trail markers appeared occasionally, just as Faith had mentioned. I hiked for nearly an hour. My boots were caked with mud, and sweat soaked through my shirt despite the cool mountain air. The coordinates showed I was getting closer. That's when I heard it. A low mechanical hum, almost imperceptible at first. I stopped to listen. Definitely machinery. The sound grew louder as I continued forward. That made no sense. Miles' satellite images showed nothing but wilderness here. I checked my GPS again. Less than half a mile to go. The mechanical sounds intensified. Heavy equipment, engines running, metal striking metal. The trail suddenly opened to a small clearing. I froze at what I saw ahead. An 8-foot chain-link fence stretched in both directions, topped with concertina wire. Yellow warning signs were posted every 20 feet. Private property. Authorized personnel only. Use of deadly force. Authorized. This wasn't on any map. I approached cautiously, staying within the tree line. Beyond the fence was a massive construction site. Earth-moving equipment carved into the hillside. Concrete trucks lined up near what appeared to be a tunnel entrance. Workers in hard hats moved with purpose around the site. I counted at least 50 people. Some operated machinery, while others carried materials into the tunnel. This was clearly a major operation. I pulled out my phone and took several photos. The signal was weak, but still working. I sent the images to Miles with a quick text. Found this at the coordinates. What the hell is going on? My phone rang almost immediately. Miles sounded confused. Dude, there's nothing in these pictures except trees and rocks, he said. Are you messing with me? I looked back at the construction site. What are you talking about? There's a huge facility right in front of me. Fences, construction equipment, workers, everything. I'm looking at your photos right now, Miles insisted. It's just wilderness, empty forest. That was impossible. I took more photos and sent them. Miles' response was the same. He saw nothing but untouched forest. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. Something was very wrong here. I moved closer to the fence, staying low. That's when I spotted him. Pierce. My grandfather stood near a cluster of temporary trailers, examining blueprints spread across a folding table. He wore army fatigues and was surrounded by 3 men in dark suits. I nearly called out to him. Then one of the suited men pointed at something on the blueprints, and Pierce nodded. They looked serious, focused on whatever project this was. Pierce suddenly looked up, scanning the perimeter. His eyes locked with mine across the distance. I thought he'd look surprised, but he didn't. He held up 5 fingers, then pointed to his left. The message was clear. 5 minutes. Meet me there. I nodded and backed away into the trees. Pierce returned to his conversation as if nothing had happened. I circled left, following the fence line. The terrain was rough, with steep drops and dense underbrush. I kept low, moving as quietly as possible. A gate came into view ahead, partially hidden behind a camouflage tarp. This had to be where Pierce meant to meet me. Voices approached from my right. I ducked behind a fallen log just as 2 security guards walked past on the other side of the fence. They carried weapons unlike any I'd seen before, not standard rifles, but something more compact with an unusual blue glow emanating from components along the barrel. They moved with military precision, scanning the forest as they patrolled. I held my breath until they passed. My watch showed nearly 5 minutes had elapsed since Pierce's signal. The sound of a keycard reader beeped softly. I peered over the log to see Pierce at the gate, looking directly at where I was hiding. I know you have questions, he said quietly, but we don't have much time. Pierce unlocked the gate and motioned me inside. His face was grim, weathered lines deeper than I remembered. I slipped through quickly as he secured the entrance behind us. You got my message, he said, his voice low and strained. I wasn't sure you'd come. What is this place? I demanded. Miles couldn't see anything in the photos I sent him. Pierce nodded like this made perfect sense. Active camouflage technology. Military's been developing it for years. The entire facility is shielded from satellite imagery. He led me toward the nearest trailer, using his keycard at the door. Inside was a small office with maps and diagrams covering the walls. Pierce locked the door behind us. I don't have much time to explain, he said. They're building a bunker, not just any bunker, a survival facility for what's coming. What's coming? I asked. Pierce's eyes met mine. An extinction-level event. Government's known about it for decades. That's why I'm here. I felt cold despite the stuffiness of the small room. Pierce had never been one for conspiracy theories or exaggeration. What kind of event? I asked. The kind that ends civilizations? He said flatly. I was brought in 3 months ago to oversee security protocols. What I've seen here, he trailed off, shaking his head. The door suddenly burst open. A tall man in military fatigues stormed in, his face contorted with anger. What the hell, Pierce? He barked. You brought a civilian into a classified installation? Pierce stood his ground. This is my grandchild, Terrell, the one I told you about. Terrell's eyes narrowed as he studied me. You had no authorization. This breaches every protocol we established. Someone needs to know the truth, Pierce said. Someone outside the program who can be trusted. Terrell stepped closer. The director will have your head for this, and worse for your guest. The door opened again. A thin man in an expensive suit entered, flanked by 2 security guards with those strange weapons I'd seen earlier. General Pierce, the man said coldly. I'm disappointed. After everything we've shared with you. Pierce nodded toward him. Jonah, I made a judgment call. Jonah turned to me. Do you have any idea what you've stumbled into? The consequences for witnessing this operation are severe. I felt my mouth go dry. My grandfather sent me coordinates. I came to find him. And now you have. Jonah said. Unfortunately, that complicates things significantly. Pierce stepped between us. They're family, one of the few I trust with what we know. Jonah considered this for a long moment. Perhaps there's another approach. A demonstration might be more effective than a termination. He nodded to the guards. Take them to level 3. Let the general show his grandchild what we're preparing for. The guards escorted us out of the trailer and toward the tunnel entrance I'd seen earlier. Inside, bright industrial lights illuminated a massive excavation. We descended on a freight elevator that rumbled deep into the earth. The doors opened onto a vast underground chamber. Workers in lab coats moved between stations, filled with technology I couldn't identify. Massive tanks contained what looked like biological specimens. This is just one level, Pierce explained as we walked. There are 7 more below us. Food storage, water purification, power generation, living quarters. Everything needed to sustain 5,000 people for decades. Who gets to survive? I asked. Pierce's expression darkened. Government officials, military leadership, scientists, the people deemed necessary to rebuild. We passed through a security checkpoint into another section. This area housed what appeared to be medical facilities with operating theaters and recovery rooms. This is where they're creating them, Pierce said quietly. Creating what? I asked. Before he could answer, the workers throughout the room suddenly stopped moving. As one, they turned to stare at me. I felt a chill run down my spine. Their eyes were wrong. Too large, slightly reflective, with vertical pupils like a cat's. Their movements as they turned were too fluid, too synchronized. A man in a lab coat approached us. "I see we have a visitor," he said, his voice oddly modulated. "I'm Isaiah, chief engineer. What's wrong with them?" I whispered to Pierce. Isaiah smiled, showing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. "Nothing's wrong. They're improved, human hybrid prototypes designed to survive what's coming." I looked closer at the workers. Their skin had a faintly scaled texture, fingers slightly too long, with joints that bent in unusual ways. "What have you done to these people?" I asked, horror rising in my throat. "Given them a future," Isaiah said. "The coming event will make Earth uninhabitable for humans as we know them. These adaptations will allow survival." Pierce gripped my arm. "This is what I needed you to see. They're changing people, preparing a new version of humanity." I stared at the workers, noticing now how they moved with an inhuman grace, how their breathing seemed minimal, almost unnecessary. "You're part of this?" I asked Pierce, disbelief in my voice. "I was brought in to secure the facility," he said. "I didn't know the full scope until I was already inside. By then, it was too late to back out." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed as a computerized voice announced a security breach. Jonah's face hardened as he checked his tablet. "Someone's been transmitting from inside the facility to a recipient named Miles." My blood ran cold. The photos I'd sent earlier. "Lock down all levels," Jonah ordered into his radio. "We have an information breach." Pierce looked at me with urgency in his eyes. "What did you do?" "I sent pictures to Miles before I found you," I admitted. "I didn't know what this place was." The security guards raised their weapons, pointing them directly at us. "This changes everything," Jonah said coldly. "Containment protocols are now in effect." The alarms blared through the facility. Pierce grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a side corridor. His grip was tight, urgent. "We need to get you out of here," he said. "Now." Guards shouted behind us. We sprinted down the hallway as red emergency lights flashed overhead. "There's an emergency exit at the end of this corridor," Pierce explained. "It leads to a maintenance tunnel that comes out in the forest." We turned a corner and saw the exit door ahead. Pierce swiped his keycard, but the reader flashed red. He tried again with the same result. "They've locked down all exits," he muttered. "We'll have to override it manually." He pulled off an access panel beside the door and started manipulating wires. I glanced nervously over my shoulder. "How much time do we have?" I asked. "Not enough," Pierce replied. "Once Jonah initiates containment protocols, they'll neutralize anyone trying to leave, including me." The door suddenly swung open. We both stepped back in surprise. Terrell stood in the doorway, blocking our escape. His eyes had changed since I'd last seen him. The pupils were vertical slits now, inhuman. "Going somewhere, Pierce?" he asked. His voice had the same strange modulation I'd noticed in the workers. Pierce moved in front of me protectively. "Let us pass, Terrell. This isn't right and you know it." Terrell smiled, revealing teeth that were definitely not human. "I've already begun the transformation. The future belongs to us now." "You're one of them," I said, the realization hitting me. "You volunteered for this." "Of course I did," Terrell replied. "When extinction comes, only the adapted will survive. The rest of humanity is already dead. They just don't know it yet." Pierce lunged forward without warning. He tackled Terrell with surprising strength for his age. "Run!" he shouted at me. "Get out through the tunnel. Tell everyone what you saw here." I hesitated for just a second. Pierce and Terrell struggled on the ground, both fighting with military precision. "Go!" Pierce yelled again. I ran through the door and found myself in a narrow maintenance tunnel. Emergency lights provided just enough illumination to see. I sprinted forward, hearing shouts and the sound of pursuit behind me. The tunnel seemed endless. My lungs burned as I pushed myself harder. Finally, I saw light ahead, the exit. I burst out into the forest. The afternoon sun momentarily blinded me after the dim tunnel. I got my bearings and started running through the trees, away from the facility. Voices shouted behind me. They were following. I ducked behind a large boulder and tried to control my breathing. "They went this way," someone called. Heavy footsteps crashed through the underbrush nearby. I stayed perfectly still. The footsteps moved past my hiding spot. I waited another minute before carefully moving deeper into the forest. A hand grabbed my shoulder. I nearly screamed. "Quiet," a familiar voice whispered. It was Faith, the forest ranger from the entrance station. "This way," she said, leading me through a nearly invisible game trail. "They'll be searching all the main paths." I followed her, moving as silently as possible. After about 20 minutes of careful navigation, she stopped. "You saw inside, didn't you?" she asked. I nodded. "You knew about this place?" "For years," Faith admitted. "I've been monitoring their activities, documenting everything. There are others like me watching similar facilities across the country." "My grandfather," I started. "He's still in there. He fought to help me escape." Faith's expression turned grim. "I'm sorry. If he stayed behind, he's not coming out." The reality of what had happened hit me. Pierce had sacrificed himself. I felt sick. "Your car is about a mile ahead," Faith said. "Can you make it from here?" I nodded, still processing everything. Faith handed me a small device. "This will block their tracking systems," she explained. "Get as far away as possible. They'll be looking for you." I took the device and continued alone. The forest was eerily quiet now. No birds, no insects, just the sound of my own footsteps. When I reached my car, I was shocked to find Miles waiting beside it. He jumped up when he saw me. "Dude, what the hell?" he said. "I've been trying to reach you for hours. Your photos showed nothing." Then suddenly they changed and I could see everything. Some kind of facility, workers, The whole thing. The camouflage must be failing, I said. Did you download the images? Everything, Miles confirmed. I sent copies to secure servers. Whatever this is, it's documented now. We got in my car and started driving down the logging road. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Pierce is still in there, I said. He stayed behind so I could escape. Miles looked at me with concern. What exactly did you see in there? I told him everything. The bunker, the hybrids, the extinction event they were preparing for. It sounded insane even as I said it. We reached the main road, but our relief was short-lived. 3 black SUVs blocked the way ahead. Men in suits stood beside them. Jonah stepped forward as we approached. I stopped the car, knowing we couldn't get past. I'd like to offer you a deal, he said when I rolled down my window. The information you've acquired is classified. National security depends on its containment. You're creating human hybrids, I said. The public deserves to know. We're ensuring humanity's survival, Jonah countered. The coming event cannot be stopped. Adaptation is our only hope. He offered a tablet showing a document. Sign this non-disclosure agreement. In return, we'll provide financial security and protection when the time comes. I looked at the tablet, then at Miles. He subtly nodded, indicating the evidence was already secure. No deal, I said. Jonah's expression hardened. Your grandfather made his choice. You should consider yours carefully. My choice is already made, I replied. I reversed quickly, turning the car around. The men scrambled back to their vehicles, but we had a head start. The evidence is already out there, Miles said as we sped away. I sent everything to multiple contacts. It's too late to contain it. My phone rang. It was my mother, Renee. I answered on speaker. They found Pierce's body, she said, her voice breaking. The military says it was a training accident. They want to do a closed casket service. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. It wasn't an accident, Mom. What do you mean? She asked. I'll explain everything when I see you, I promised. Don't let them take his body. Demand an independent autopsy. After hanging up, I noticed something strange. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked different. My eyes caught the light in an unusual way. I pulled over and examined myself more closely. My pupils had changed shape slightly. Not fully like Terrell's, but definitely not normal. What is it? Miles asked. I showed him. His eyes widened. The facility, I realized. Just being there exposed me to whatever they're using to change people. Miles looked horrified. Will it spread? Is it contagious? I didn't know. I thought about Pierce's sacrifice, about the facility hidden in the mountains, about the extinction event they were preparing for. We need to tell everyone, I said. Whatever's coming, people deserve to know the truth. I started the car again. The changes in my body were just beginning. I had no idea what I was becoming, but I knew one thing for certain. The coordinates Pierce sent had changed everything, and nothing would ever be the same again.